The most common question I got, it was about this incident that happened while you were in the Sierras that you very briefly mentioned and kind of said you didn't really want to tell the story. What is the deal with this?
Yeah, it doesn't involve just me. There's a lot of nuance to the story, and I think that is what's most difficult, is that it's sensitive in a way where it was, pretty traumatizing experience.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd like you would not believe. And every single week on this podcast, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. And folks, we're going to have a great episode. Or maybe we won't, because I'm kind of sick. And while that affects my voice and my nose, it also affects my brain, apparently, because I feel like my brain has been running at half speed lately. So go easy on me. Go easy on me this week. But I am so excited. And one of the best things about doing this content thing, doing this podcast, and honestly, one of the greatest privileges of doing all this is the people that I get to talk to and the people that I get to meet. And that certainly holds true this week. I'm so excited. Before we get into it, just real quick, you know what I'm going to say, right? I have a podcast. The U.S. passed a law a few years ago that if you have a podcast, you're legally obligated to ask for a 5-star review in the introduction. So please go do that. And thank you so much to everyone who's been leaving them recently. I've been reading them all, and I really appreciate them. And if you're watching on YouTube, also legally obligated to ask you to smash the subscribe button. And let's see if we can get this Trail Tales YouTube channel to 10,000 subscribers. With that said, let's get into it. I'm gonna mess up her name. Elina Osborne. How did I do?
Oh, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
Not Alina, not Elena. Elina. Tip Tap is your trail name. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for giving up your time and for doing the recording stuff on your end. That's not easy for folks watching at home. Thank you. I'm just so excited and so grateful.
Yeah, thanks for having me. For those who are watching on YouTube, it's a really awkward thing because I've got a camera recording and I'm meant to look at the camera while I'm speaking to Kyle. So I'm looking at a lens while talking to somebody, but we'll see how we go. But no, it's good. It's good.
It'll be good. It's kind of funny. I feel like I maybe take this for granted because I'm so used to it now. Again, for everybody watching and listening, I am looking at the camera right now. I cannot see Elina. God, did I say it right?
No, you nailed it. You got it.
I'm so worried that I'm going to say your name wrong.
You can call me Elle for short,
Elle.
if it helps.
I should probably just do that or Tip Tap. But anyways, yeah, the recording's funky because we try to get the best quality for everybody. And so I'm looking at the camera, but I can't see her. But anyways, this is going to be fun. So I think to start, we're just gonna do the classic podcast thing. Why don't you give an introduction to yourself? Talk about who you are, what you've hiked, and all that. I'm sure a lot of people listening know, but I'm sure there's some that don't. So, who is Elle?
Who is Elle? Oh man, I forgot that this is what podcasts are.
That's right. Has it been a while since you've done one?
I feel like yes. Yes. So who am I? I'm Elina Osborne. I grew up in Aotearoa, New Zealand, to a Japanese mother, Kiwi dad, 4 siblings. So yes, very used to really fighting for my food. I have hiked. So in 2019, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, my first ever thru hike, first foray into that whole world. Then the world shut down, of course. And I had no choice but to hike Te Araroa, which you can say with me, Kyle. Te Araroa.
Oh boy. See, we were talking about this beforehand. I shouldn't say we call it over here, speaking for the U.S. I should speak for myself. I always called it the Te Aurora, but say it again.
Te Araroa.
Say it again slow.
Te Araroa. So the...
Araroa. I can't
Yeah, the rolling of the R's takes a long time. I had to practice when I started hiking it. But yeah, I hiked the TA 2020/21. And then, yeah, most recently I I say just, it was about this time a year ago where I was about to start hiking the Hayduke, which is, the 800-mile route in Utah. Definitely not a trail.
Yeah, I don't know much about it other than what I saw from your Q&A video you did about it. And I mean, I've heard about it before. We're going to get into that because I am very curious about this. And honestly, I'll save it. But I do want to just go back to some of the history just a little bit. Again, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I am curious how you learned about the PCT, and even more so, why? Why did you do it? Why did you take that leap? Why did you take that risk? Especially if it was your first one. Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I feel like, you know how the more you tell the story, the more you kind of forget if that was the real origin or not. It's kind of like, wait,
I'm questioning every story I've ever told in this podcast at this point. I was actually just planning a video for my main channel coming up where I talk about some of my more dangerous moments on trail, and I was writing this one story, and it involved an ex-girlfriend. Like, she was with me in this story, and I was writing it, and I was like, did this even happen? Like, is she going to watch this video and be like, this idiot is just making shit up? Like, yeah. So anyways,
just for the drama,
I know what you mean.
editing. Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, it was the classic tale of reading wild, maybe when I was like 16, but it wasn't, when I read it, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go hike that trail. It was like, wow, that trail exists. You know, I learned of the existence of a trail like that and how you probably needed to be it sounds really bad, but I was like, wow, she was in a really bad place in her life and that gave her meaning. So it was like, oh, I feel like maybe you need to be in that place in your life to warrant doing something like that. And that was my feeling at the time. And then maybe I did get to that place of needing something like that, but it wasn't, till 2018, where I ended a relationship, just ended badly. Just like a series of events where I felt like I was just living a life that I hadn't really chosen and I'd kind of fallen into, in terms of kind of like the work I was doing. It felt all the same. My mum had been recently diagnosed with cancer. So I guess there was a sense of like feeling a lack of control over everything. And so I think it kind of culminated in me realizing, okay, maybe it's that time to go do the thing that sounded really cool and really impossible. And then I don't even know, maybe an algorithm kind of like fed it to me on Instagram. But actually, I remember being like, okay, have people done this trail since this book? And then I, typed it into YouTube, typed it into Instagram or whatever. And I was like, wow, there's a whole hiking world that exists. I had no idea. And that was end of 2018. And then, I guess from there, it was just like, okay, this is enough. I've seen enough. I've seen these little clips of people doing it. I think I'm going to head out there.
Yeah. And you did. And you didn't just hike it, but obviously you filmed it. And you did so in a very unique way, I think. I mean, I think it's safe to say that pretty much anybody who's searched for Pacific Crest Trail videos on YouTube has seen your videos. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. Each episode, I believe, got well over 100,000 views. It is the people, the kind of condensed short film there. What was it, like 600, 700,000? Like, just, we're talking huge numbers here, and for good reason. I mean, it's just fantastic. I remember when it came out at the time, I wasn't even, I was still pretty early on in my YouTube journey back then. And I remember, and I wasn't even like super, I was interested in the PCT, but I hadn't actively made plans to hike it yet. And regardless of that, like, captured my attention. Like, I mean, even to this day, like, people still talk about those videos all the time.
That's crazy.
Isn't it crazy? And I know it's been so many years. It's been a long time now. So, I mean, 2019 you hiked. I think it was early 2020 you started putting those videos out. Like, it's been a long time, and like it still makes such a big impact on the PCT community.
I will attribute a lot of that as well to COVID times, because they all started coming out just before everything hit. So I think a lot of people were inside and they were like, oh, I want to go do the things I can't do. And I think a lot of people went to my videos. But I appreciate you saying that. And it is kind of wild to me because, yeah, I currently live in New Zealand and very kind of, I guess, somewhat connected in an online way to seeing some of that world, but I'm not super in tune with everything that's happening. And yeah, geographic location means I'm not super aware of what's happening over there.
Yeah. Have you been back to the PCT at all since 2019?
So I went and did a little, I touched it essentially. I think it was 2022, maybe July. I met up, oh my gosh, why is the name evading me? This is really bad. This is really bad.
It's okay.
Anyway.
Was it someone you had met on trail?
We'd connected online.
Okay.
This is terrible. Sub this out. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so essentially we went and did some trail magic.
Nice.
Prodigy. Hiking Prodigy. I'm back.
Tyler.
Yeah,
Tyler Lau.
Yeah. So I met up with him and we went and did some trail magic, and it was super cool. It was super cool, especially because these two guys had sent me a video before they started the trail, and it was like, hey, we made this video. We kind of mentioned you in it, and of course, it's the easiest way to get attention, right? You flatter the person you're sending it to. So I was like, but actually this storytelling was incredible and I was super intrigued. I don't often watch hiking videos. And you'll find it's probably a similar case with most people who are creating that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really watch it, but they'd send it to me and I was immediately hooked in the first second, just the way they were telling their story. And they sent it to me, I guess, in March 2022. And then I was out on the trail, I don't know, May, something like that, let's say. And I was doing trail magic with Tyler. And out around the corner come the two guys from the video who sent it to me. And they just looked at me and I looked at them and I was like, wait, I know you guys. And they're like, oh, I know. So it was a super cool, just kind of moment of synchronicity or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I've only touched it since. I would love to go back and hike a section or two. I would love to go do a bit of Washington. Yeah, I'd love to go back.
Yeah, no, you definitely should, and you definitely will, I'm sure. Another question, I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times, but I'm curious what your filmmaking background was before the PCT. And I have some kind of offshoot questions. This is stuff especially interesting to me as,
YouTube creator,
a content creator, as someone who definitely is not as skilled as you, and someone who would like to, at least when it comes to certain aspects, we'll say, and someone who would like to up their game as time goes on. So I have a lot of questions about this. But yeah, anyways, back to the original question I asked there, just like filmmaking background before trail, like how much did you have there?
But I'm just going to note that I'd also love to ask you about your trajectory because it's been incredible. I mean, your growth has been insane. So yeah, filmmaking background, I guess I don't have a traditional filmmaking background at all. I studied communications, very broad degree. It's a 3-year degree. And in my final year, I was able to do a major focus on video production. Within that year, we were able to do kind of like a final year project, and I directed a short form documentary, and it kind of just reinstilled the sense of me wanting to tell nonfiction stories, to tell real stories. And then from there, I kind of just started jumping into video work. So I worked for a startup education company and they wanted a video editor. And I was like, I can do that. Then they wanted somebody to film and I was like, well, I can also do that. And then they were trying to expand their reach and film things in the US. And I was like, well, I can go to the US. So I went to the US for like a year and was creating their video content. I was like, you guys need a YouTube channel. So this is 2016. And I was like, you need to do day in the life of college students. Because they were trying to essentially get students into these kind of colleges, Ivy Leagues from New Zealand, Australia. And so I was like, you need to give insight and authority. So I went to these colleges. I went to a lot of these Ivy Leagues, which was fulfilling another pipe dream of mine to attend college in the US based on the indoctrination I had growing up watching all these American movies where they're all on these college campuses. And so I just went around to a bunch of college campuses that year, filming really interesting students doing really interesting things. And yeah, started their YouTube channel, helped it grow. It still exists. And then I went and did the same thing. I just reflect on this recently. I was like, wow, I've started 3 YouTube channels. The second one was really random. I was doing videos for the New Zealand Police. Essentially, they gave me this very official title, like Senior Communications Advisor. And I was like, I can make videos. So I did the same thing where I was like, I can go film all the really cool jobs and make videos about that. And that did really well. And never put myself on camera ever because I absolutely did not want to be on camera until, PCT, which is kind of ironic now.
Yeah, that is kind of ironic. But clearly you knew what you were doing. And so the first question that comes to mind for me when it comes to the PCT videos, and I'm talking more the episodes, not so much the short film. So I'm curious. So my understanding is the way that you did it, just based on the timeline, is you went out, you hiked, you filmed, and then after you got back, you put everything together, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so when you were actually out there filming, because this is something I've thought about and struggled with, and I do not want to compare my hiking videos to yours because they're not in the same league, but this is something that I've struggled with when I've made my videos, both on the PCT and on other hikes. It's like, how much thought were you putting into the way that the final product was going to look while you were actually out there filming? I'm curious if you had already thought of some of the narration that you were going to do, if you had an idea of how the story was going to flow for that episode, or if you were just in the moment, just pointing and shooting, filming, and then you put it all together afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about my PCT experience. I literally had no plans about... I had no plans to do a series. So I went out with the intent of just filming a short film. And I wanted to, and from my brief looking at the way people had documented their trips, I could see, okay, yeah, you're going to meet a lot of incredible people. So I made the effort to interview people after I'd built a bit of rapport with them. I was used to just filming people, having done it for different YouTube channels. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to interview people. I mean, this is also part of my experience. And I knew for the YouTube platform, you need a character to follow. You need somebody. And that's what forced me to put myself in front of the camera because, yeah, it was kind of like not disassociating, but a sense of like, okay, I have to be the vessel that the story comes through, that people can connect to. They need to see a face. I can't just have all these random faces. And so that's what made me film myself. But if you notice in the short film, there's hardly ever, if any, shots of me talking to the camera directly. I did
notice that.
Because I didn't want it to be, it wasn't like vlog style, it was kind of like, I want it to be more of like this film. And that was all I was going to make. But it just so happened that I picked up this really fun little camera, the DJI Osmo Pocket, and I saw it came out just before I left for trail. And I was like, wow, this is my dream camera for a trip like this. I'd never vlogged or filmed, talking to myself or to people on camera like that before. And so for me, that camera was just really fun. I just had a lot of fun with it. I was just filming moments as I went. And then after I made that short film and the reception was super, super good. And I knew, I knew the potential of YouTube and what building an audience can do, especially for somebody who's got a bigger dream. My dream always being to eventually direct my own kind of feature-length documentary or work in that space. It was like, okay, well, if I want to really build an audience or, be able to tell my story, maybe I can actually, and now that I've got this engaged audience, maybe I can tell more of the story that I left out because there are so many moments of my own personal experience that I can then delve into.
Yeah. Again, talking about the episodes, they were so good, like, and so different than what most people do when it comes to the vlog thing, what I did. And not that there's anything wrong with doing that, of course, but it was just like such a different perspective on the trail. And actually, going back to something you talked about a few minutes ago, I guess this is more kind of talking about the film itself. It is the people. Do you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert? Because it seems like you're an extrovert.
So I have thought about this, like, because my whole life I was very, very shy. But I would put myself into situations where I had to be in front of people. So for school, I don't know if you've got this in the US, but we've got like head girl, head boy. I know you've got like valedictorian, but it's not like that. It's kind of like you are the person who is the representative of all the students. So I went forward in my final year of high school and was like head girl. So every week I would give speeches to the school. But inside I was dying. I absolutely hated it, but I made myself do it because I was like, well, who else is going to do it? And so I went for it, and the students vote, the teachers vote, and then you have to, anyway, it's a whole process. But I did things like that on the surface maybe looks quite extroverted, but internally always feeling super shy. So sometimes I think I'm an introverted extrovert, but I'm not sure completely. I think my sister has said that I'm an extrovert, but I don't know. How about you? What are you?
I'm definitely an introvert.
Okay.
I actually had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they made fun of me because I said that opposite of what you just said. I said that I was a extroverted introverts, and they were like, that's what everybody always says. So I was like, okay, but which is probably true, to be fair. But the reason I asked you is because hearing you talk about the film a little bit a few minutes ago, it got me thinking and having watched it a few times, most recently yesterday, and seeing you film these people, and also I guess watching some of the episodes too, and seeing you hiking in these big groups of people. I think at one point you said it was 11 strong or something like that.
Probably.
That's something I've never experienced before. Like I found myself on trail. I do like to meet people and talk to people. But hiking in a group of 11 people just is like a nightmare to me. That's dramatic. It's not a nightmare, but just not ideal for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how that experience was. And, I don't know. That just got me thinking about whether or not you're an introvert. I feel like you got to at least have some pretty strong extroverted tendencies to do that hike with a group of 11.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like as well, there's a bit of maybe misrepresentation on my part of what that hike looked like, because of the times we hiked together, there were maybe 2, and I happened to get them on camera twice. So it looked like it happened a lot, where the reality was we'd all camp together, and then we'd be like, all right, see you later. And then maybe see each other throughout the day and then camp together at night. I did really enjoy it. I will say when I first met that group, I think it was Sierra City. So like the top end of Northern California. I was very overwhelmed by meeting them all because I was like, wow, this is a large group. But it was also very exciting, a new way to like mark that era of that bit of the hike. But also I was thinking about what you asked before about the videos and like had I pre-planned the series. I will say no, but I will say that the editing was very, very, very meticulous. And even though because this like quality of the footage is kind of like, okay, I filmed 1080, it was I mean, there's definitely better, but in the writing and the piecing together, it was very going through every little thread, trying to weave it together. And I remember just trying to create the feeling of it being super seamless, super easy, and what you don't see. And as I'm sure you are very aware, obviously, editing takes a long time, and writing an edit, and especially when you haven't actually thought out the story, it makes it kind of harder because you're like, okay, so what actually happened here, and how do I make this all kind of come together, and how do I end it in a note where people are like, oh, what happens next? So the back end, it probably made the back end a little harder, but so it goes with real life, right?
So incredible. Like if I had to take a guess before we talked about this just now, like I would have guessed that you did have at least some idea of how each episode was going to look, or you were maybe even piecing it together in your head while you were filming it. Because that's kind of what I do, and I've talked to other people that do this YouTube thing, and that's kind of what they do. But it really sounds like you were just mostly or entirely thinking about the film and not so much the episodes. That's incredible. I think that's just a testament to like how skilled of a filmmaker and a storyteller you are. It's awesome. It's true. It's true. I mean, those videos are probably the most popular PCT series on YouTube right now for a reason. And so it's awesome. And actually, speaking of storytelling and kind of the flow of things, and you actually slightly alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about how, well, the only time we actually hiked together, I just happened to get on film. I'm curious how you balance, and this doesn't even have to be just for the PCT series. We can open this up to any film you've made. How do you balance, or how do you strike the balance between telling a story, a compelling story, an entertaining story that flows well and flows naturally, with portraying things accurately as they actually happened? Because I know I've experienced this. I've noticed just when I've been making videos before, like, oh, if I kind of play this up a little bit, or if I swap these two things, it will flow better as a story, you know, a beginning, middle, and end. And it can be, I feel like, tempting for some people at least to, you know, kind of stray from the accuracy of how things actually happened in order to craft a entertaining story. So how do you kind of strike the balance between those two things?
Yeah. I think that's super interesting. It's a good question.
And to be clear, I'm not trying to say that your videos are like bullshit or anything.
I've just
like
cut it all together, creating drama where there's no drama.
Well, that is kind of my specialty. Have you seen the thumbnails for this show?
Yes, they're wonderful.
I can't wait to see how yours comes out. I'll run it by you beforehand. I always do.
No, please, just blast it.
Sorry, side tangent, but I've got people in the past saying like, "Kyle, your thumbnails are so disrespectful in regards to this show." And just to be clear, I always send it to the person before I upload it and make sure they're okay with it. Anyways, sorry.
I just want like bleeding tears and laser eyes.
Careful what you wish for.
Okay, so yeah, the balance between the truth and the story that you're telling. I think you have full authority to chop and change sequences of events to get the flow of the story. Because I think first and foremost, I was asked this once where the question was, would you rather give up hiking or filmmaking or storytelling? And that's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
And I think when initially I was like, that's impossible. And then I thought about it and I was like, actually, as long as I could tell a story, I think I would have more a sense of like fulfillment in my life, and maybe there are other outlets to hiking. So I always kind of first and foremost maybe see myself as a storyteller, and hiking just happens to be the context to which I'm telling in. It's the sandbox that I'm playing in. And I think you have full authority to chop and change sequences of events, to get the flow. But I don't think you should change like the actual truth of what's occurred. Just for the story. But I mean, the audience isn't going to know. And I think that's something it's easy to get caught up in when you're editing something that is real, where you're like, oh, this has to look exactly as it happened. Nobody actually cares. They just want to be in the experience and they want to feel what you felt, versus like, oh, that's not exactly accurate. I mean, it's like the movies that are based on true events, right?
Based, not
based,
grounded
based
in truth, you know.
Events.
No, I think that's a good way to put it. And this is something that I've kind of had to let go of a little bit. I remember on the PCT, I had somebody editing my videos for me while I was out there. And I remember at the very beginning, if he would even just put a B-roll clip out of order, like doesn't even have an impact on the story at all. Just like one shot that I knew happened a few hours like later than it was supposed to be in the video. even though it looks the same as everything else, you're just in the desert or whatever, like, that would bug me. And I had to, and that's an extreme example, but I had to learn to let go of that for sure. And I do agree. I think at the end of the day, like the arc of the story being compelling and kind of tapping into people's emotions is what's most important, as long as it's, you know, still rooted in the truth. You can't be like making shit up, obviously, which, you know, I'd like to think that most people aren't doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
at least in the hiking space.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, it's your experience and how you interpret your experience, right? So you're just conveying that experience. I guess it might be a little bit different for your videos, your mystery videos, where you can't really change those.
No, it's totally that's totally different. Yeah, in those videos, I'm like stressing over. Yeah, no. Oh, that would be so bad if like in those videos, I'm stressing over every little detail, trying to make sure it's 100% right, just because I really don't want to, you know, do wrong against the people that I'm talking about, you know, in some of these tragedies and stuff. And so, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay. I'll just take over.
Well,
I was going to ask if you were also, were you always interested in kind of like those true crime kind of stories, or like ways of telling stories, the way the information kind of unfolds?
I've always like consumed true crime kind of mystery content. It was never like my like number one thing or anything, like, or even something. But I mean, yeah, I would definitely. I definitely consumed a lot of it, and then I think I just kind of stumbled into it and got lucky, to be honest. There was no master plan. I just tried it out and it worked, and people liked it. And I think I found that I just happened to have a knack for telling those kinds of stories. And also I wouldn't be able to do it without my editors too, who put it all together and kind of tie the story together. So yeah, I'm very lucky that we can talk about this more.
Yeah,
later,
I'm so intrigued.
Or maybe maybe in Utah. Maybe in Utah.
Oh, okay, your YouTube
in
story.
Too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of luck. Yeah, not that I don't want to talk about it publicly or anything, but it's kind of crazy. Go listen to my Backpacker Radio episode too, if anybody listening is curious about more of like how the mystery stuff came to be on my channel, because I talk about it quite a bit on there, and it was a really cool episode. Anyways, that's getting a little controversial. Not really, but the reason I say that is because I want to segue into this next question for you.
Okay.
Which is maybe also probably not controversial, but back in November, we were going to do this episode, and it ended up not happening. We ended up pushing it back a while, but at the time, I put a call out on Instagram asking for people to, you know, submit questions. And I got the most common question I got was something that I wasn't even aware of. It was about this unknown, I don't even know what to call it, incident thing that happened while you were in the Sierras that you very briefly mentioned in episode 6, I believe, of your PCT series, and kind of said you didn't really want to tell the story. And I had a number of people, I'm making it sound like everybody, it's not everybody, just a couple people. A couple people asked about this.
So many.
And I didn't know what they were talking about. And so I went and I rewatched that episode because it had been a while. And I was expecting you to like kind of really like blow this thing out of proportion, but then not actually tell the story. But that's not what you did. Like I said, you just briefly mentioned it. And so I was kind of, and I'm not trying to rip on anybody who asked this question. I do really appreciate it, but I don't know, how much can you tell us about this? Can you tell us the full story, or what is the deal with this? We'll just say there, and however much or little you want to say is up to you, because I don't really know what this is about, and I'm not trying to pry too much. But,
You're gonna pry. It's the ghost that haunts me. And it's like also the omission of information, right? Where people are like, "Ooh, what is that?"
That makes it seem. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I was to tell the full story, it would take minimum 1 hour, because it needs a lot of context. There's a lot of nuance to the story. It also doesn't involve just me. And I think that is what's most difficult, is that it's sensitive in a way where, it doesn't involve just me. And it was, pretty traumatizing experience.
Really?
And I think I think the best way for me to ever tell that story would be written, because I feel like you can lean more into the sensitivity of it and the nuance of it.
Wait, sorry. The best way to tell it would be what? I missed
Written.
That. Oh, written. Okay.
And words, because I feel like, with voice, you kind of naturally, if I were to tell close friends, I'm going to kind of dramatize it maybe. Not dramatize it, but like the voice and the hand gestures will make it feel very extreme. And I think, again, because it involves other people, you'll catch it in a chapter in a book that I write in some years' time.
Okay. Fair enough. I wanted to get that in there because, like I said, people were asking about it.
It was asked by a total of 3 people.
Yeah, it wasn't that many, but we did get some other good questions on Instagram as well, and I think we'll kind of go through some of these real quick. I'm sure this is one you've never gotten before.
Okay.
It is a good question, though.
Okay.
Alpine Dream Chaser said, and I'm kind of curious about this, to be honest. I'm kind of curious about all these. That's why I'm picking them all the questions.
Yeah, of course.
Alpine Dream Chaser said, if she was to do a thru hike again, which one would she pick?
Oh, it's funny because when I was hiking the Hayduke, we were all like, we're never doing this again. We're never doing this again. One of the girls who hiked us, she had already hiked it once before. And I was like, this is crazy. This is just, who would ever in their right mind do it again? But now I look back, I'm like, I kind of maybe would. But in saying that, PCT is always going to be number 1 if I were to hike another trail again. TA, really? I don't think I would do ever again. If I were to do it, maybe I'd be in my 60s and go northbound, just re-experience the trail. Although I would say it'd be interesting to re-hike that now because I did it when the borders were closed, so it was just mainly Kiwis. And now it's a lot of international people, which is more fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, PCT, always, right?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, like when I read and asked this question, I actually interpreted it a little bit differently. So
what was the question?
No. So what I think that you did actually, I think I was getting it wrong maybe, or it really could go either way. So the exact question was, quote, if she was to do a thru hike again, which one would she pick? So that makes it sound like redo a thru hike you've already done. But I was actually interpreting it as like, if you were to thru hike again, like which trail would you do next kind of thing.
Okay, I have an answer for that too. If I were to hike one in the US, Colorado Trail is interesting, but I think if I were to hike, honestly, the next one I want to do is in Japan. It's called the Michinoku Trail. It's a coastal trail.
I didn't know Japan had a thru hike.
Yeah, it's kind of recent, kind of new.
Cool.
I think it's a lot of road. It would not be a traditional wilderness trail. I'm very aware of that. But I think what really draws me to trails is the cultural experience. And that's why I loved the PCT. It was, to me, a very cultural experience. That the old American diner experience. And Te Aroha gave me this kind of renewed perspective of New Zealand, of Aotearoa. And Hayduke, US. So the same for the Michinoku. I think it would be an incredible cultural experience. There's another one also in Korea I'd love to do, but first, Japan.
That's so cool. I didn't know that Japan had a footpath, and that's so cool. I feel like you said there, it's a relatively recent thing. I feel like I vaguely am hearing like about a lot of new footpaths in various places outside of the US, which is like, I know there's the one in France. I think it's France, the Hexatrek, like that.
Yeah,
I've heard about a little bit. Yeah, like it's cool to see these trails, these new ones popping up, and obviously
there are trails outside the US. What?
I know. I get requested a lot on this show to talk about foreign, from my perspective, anyways, foreign trails, and the thing is, like I don't have any experience on them, and I don't know that many people that have done them, to be honest. And so it's, I don't know, but something we will definitely talk about in the future. And actually, speaking of this, I guess while we're on the topic, another question from Instagram. This one is from Oz3Ran. What are, again, I'm sure you've been asked about this, but I am so curious about this because I do not know much about the TA, we're going to call it, from my perspective. What are the main differences between the PCT and the TA? I'm really curious about this because you hear a lot of hype about the TA, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, there are trails where they say choose your own adventure. I feel like TA definitely, you should come into it with that mentality, because I do feel like a lot of people maybe who have only hiked US trails where it's, complete wilderness, maybe get a little bit disappointed by just how rugged it is and how much the terrain changes. You'll be walking along state highways, you'll be walking through farmland, private property, and then it's not to the South Island where you really get to the mountains. So it really, I think, one of the biggest differences is that I feel like the North Island specifically is more to go into it with the mindset that it's a kind of like cultural pilgrimage almost. You do get to hike past Mount Doom, Mount Narahoe. You do pedal down a river. That was one of my favorite sections of TA, full stop. For 5 days, you're just paddling down a river, and you can carry however heavy a food you want because you're storing them in barrels. Side note, you do need to carry those barrels up hills. So if you take a lot of beer, just be aware.
Drink it at the bottom and then charge up that shit afterwards. I'm sure that'd be much easier.
And yeah, I mean that's a huge difference, right? And it's people are still learning about TA in New Zealand. It's not got the history of the established trail angels, and just Kiwiness, Kiwi culture. A lot of pies.
Nothing wrong with that.
Meat pies, by the way.
Oh, meat pies?
It's like number one food here.
What is it? I've never even heard of this.
It's a pie with meat inside.
I've heard of shepherd's pie.
In a way, it's like a crust and then
I've never actually had it.
I mean, you'll have to come down to New Zealand at some point.
I would love to. I would love to. Clearly, I'm not very well traveled, and so I would absolutely love to.
You're halfway here, right? You're in Hawaii.
Yeah, right now I am. No, I would definitely love to. I know my girlfriend's like interested in visiting New Zealand as well.
There we go.
How does the resupply on the TA work? Because that's one thing that kind of intimidates me when it comes to hiking trails outside of the US, especially, I guess the TA is fairly well established, but how does it work? Like, I'm sure it's going to vary, obviously, like any trail, but so just generally speaking, like, are you actually like hitching into town or does it go through enough towns that you can kind of do it that way?
North Island is you do not need a single box.
Nice.
Usually you're just walking through towns. You could hitch a couple times, but mainly you're just walking through towns. And then South Island, there are maybe 2 or 3 boxes you should send yourself. Otherwise, you can also just hitch. But the hitches are like 2 to 3 hours. So It depends on what you want. If you want to do little cheeky side trips, then you can do that. Otherwise, 2 to 3 boxes is covers it pretty easy.
And is it similar to the PCT as far as like distance between resupplies? You usually go in like 4 or 5 days between? And again, it's going to vary, I know.
Yeah, North Island is, I would say, max. If you even have a 5-day carry, I don't remember. Maybe for the Tararua Ranges down in the bottom, which is like just before Wellington, right where Heaps is, and who I know you've met.
Yeah.
And so then the Richmond Ranges, people do it in like between 5 would be very, very quick. I would say 6 to 9 days. And then the next stretch after that is maybe similar, 6 to 9 days. And then
wow, 9 days, that's a lot.
But I mean, you could do it a lot quicker. I think for me,
yeah,
I did the Richmonds I did in 6, and then The next stretch, Blue Lakes, I added on a really cool side trip to a beautiful lake called Lake Angeles. And maybe that was 6 to 7 days as well. So
cool.
max was like a week, I would say.
I gotcha. And then what about camping? Because I'm pretty sure you're doing some wild camping on this trail, but especially
Not
the North Island, maybe
really.
it's okay. Can you talk?
A lot of it
what's
is,
the
protected land. You're either having to camp on somebody's yard. That happens a lot. Camp in somebody's farm, or you are booking campsites. And so it's it doesn't have that same experience as PCT where you can just camp anywhere. The land is a lot more protected. And because it's not this, specific wilderness trail, it's going through already established places. But the hut system is super cool, super sweet in the South Island. Huts are epic.
I've heard and I've seen. I watched your most recent video with Craig, which I'm not sure if that was on the TA, but I'm assuming that was.
Did we loop in any of the TA? No, we didn't loop any of the TA, but I mean the huts are similar.
That's the whole, and I know other places outside of the U.S. have that too, like in Europe and stuff. These huts, which I don't know much about them, but they are very.
Oh my gosh, those
intriguing.
huts are so bougie. They
really?
feed you like 3-course meals, and it's a little bit different in the New Zealand hut, but it is still pretty nice.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out for sure. Can we talk about this Hayduke thing a little bit more? Like
Hayduke.
I don't know much about it. Like I said earlier, I watched your Q&A. Mm-hmm. It's not even a trail, huh? It's more like a route.
Mystery trail. It's crazy to me that it's been almost a year since we started it. It still feels very fresh. And we're in this whole process because that was a kind of like funded hike. So it was backed by a couple gear companies. And it was a really cool, different way to hike, with the priority probably on the filmmaking aspect of it. I mean, also the experience and making sure we had fun, because that's like,
of course,
number one. But it was backed.
What was the film that you guys were making?
So we still don't know if it's going to be a series or a film. Probably a series with the amount of footage that we got.
Okay.
But, I mean, you don't know what you're making, right? When it's real life, you're kind of like, well, we're going to go film this experience. We don't know how it's going to turn out. Somebody might die. No, nobody died. Spoiler. But, so... yeah, we have a lot of footage. We have a lot of footage that we're cooking with. It's, very stop-start at the moment. But anyway, the trail itself was insane. It was unlike anything I've experienced. Just
you said it's in Utah, correct?
Yeah, Utah, and it crosses over into Arizona. So you dip into the Grand Canyon, and then you end in Zion. So you start in Moab, go through Arches, head west, dip down, head north.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. And I I'd actually visited some of these places some years ago when I first went to the US, but just surface level, like did not go right down to the Colorado River, did not go right down deep into the canyons like that. And it was, you're given a lot of perspective being down in a canyon that long. And I started to feel a sense of, how there's the phrase like cabin fever. I feel like it's the same with canyons, and being down there for a long time is pretty...
I've never hiked in that kind of environment, or even been in that kind of environment at all before.
Yeah.
So.
Have you been to Utah?
No, okay. I've never been to Utah. I will be going, actually, I will be going very shortly.
Really?
I've never been to Utah, no.
Yeah, cool.
I went to northern Arizona when I was a kid, but that was before the hiking and stuff. So that was just kind of driving, from Vegas down to Phoenix pretty much.
Yeah. Very, very different terrain. A lot of moments where I questioned whether I would make it out the other side. And I still have a lot of scars on my legs and my soul.
One thing I remember from your Q&A video was at one point you said you had to carry like an ungodly amount of water. I think it was like 8 liters or something at a time.
Yeah.
That is insane. How many miles between water sources was there for 8 liters? That's crazy.
That was for the longest one, which was 40 miles.
Wow.
And the thing is,
that's nuts.
It's not like a PCT 40 miles where you're like, oh, I can do that in like a day. It's like a Hayduke 40 miles is like, it can take like 3 days.
Yeah.
Depending on the terrain. Because imagine if you're climbing out of a canyon or you're just trying to navigate, as well as because it isn't super well marked. You can get lost, and you've got to account for that.
So is it an established marked route, or is it just like a point A to point B?
There's a route, and the's like an old app that was deleted once upon a time that somehow you need to find access to, and then there's also like a route on the other apps too. But and you can't really rely on the water information as well, unless you're kind of in touch with people who are in front of you, and usually there aren't many people hiking the Hayduke. But luckily I was messaging with Mac from Halfway Anywhere, and he was ahead of us.
I just Googled the trail, and his article came up.
Okay, yeah. So he was ahead of us by a couple of weeks. We never caught him, even though he took like 2 weeks off. We were just very slow.
Wow. I'll have to read this article.
But he had great intel, great beta for water sources.
Yeah, I guess, was that planned, or is that just kind of luck? Because that
with
could make
having
a big
somebody
difference.
in front. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, even though he had the beta, we still were like, well, we don't know if it's actually going to be there. So you're always very wary of water. But I got, very used to having like 20 mils of water for 8 miles in desert heat. So trained my dehydration skills out there.
Oh man. See, this is one of those trails that, like, I don't know if I could do it, or if I'd even want to. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't think I would attempt it alone. Is the thing I took out of it. Yeah,
definitely. Did you guys ever show up to what was supposed to be a water source and just be like bone dry, totally skunked?
Yes. And the hack to that was Jolly Ranchers. Jolly Ranchers, just sucking on them and keeping your mouth and your mind occupied. And sometimes you'd get to water and you'd be like, oh, this is very salty, and still kind of drink it and just... Yeah. Even really Mio or Crystal Light cannot hide the salt in that.
Oh, man. I don't know about that one. We'll see. We're getting towards the end here. And so I always feel so weird. So when I first started this show, I said this a few episodes ago, but when I first started the show, back when I didn't have any clue what I was doing, I was like, oh, it's called Trail Tales. So like, save a story for the end of the episode. So that was like my thing. But I always feel so silly now when I ask people for their end of episode story, because the entire episode is largely stories. So it's like, I don't know, but I've said it way too many times now to go back on it, and people expect it. And so, yeah, now that we're kind of getting towards the end here, and this is another thing, I just feel weird. I'm just like, what do you have for us?
Entertain me.
Yes, exactly. Pass the ball.
I mean, there's a lot of stories, but okay. So I said you did tell me about this before, and I'm semi-cheating with I'm just going to read a journal entry from...
Sure. No, that's cool. This is going to be a first for the show.
Okay, so great.
I'm there for it.
Yeah, so this is from... I'm going to combine 2 days here. It's not super long. We'll see. Sorry, if I take too long, you just cut me. I'll be like, okay, your time's out.
No, let's do it.
This is from the 5th of June, 2023. Okay.
This is on the Hayduke then.
On the Hayduke, deep down in the depths of the canyon.
Oh, boy.
I think this was our second stretch of the Grand Canyon. So we're nearing the end. We are just done. We're done with trail. Okay. If killing options were a sport, it would be Olympic gold medalists. First to Pete's, then retrieving my lost toiletry bag, then Crazy Jug. It's day 6 of the stretch and we've made the call. We're going to have to stretch 5 more days, not 4. 90% of our conversations are route. Route, logistics, crazy jug. It seems logical until it doesn't. Until we're doing full-scale bouldering with packs on. Crazy jug. A fitting name for an impossible task. There's a feeling down here. It's hard to place. There's a feeling down here that if you linger too long, you'll be in the canyon forever. Day 7 of a stretch meant to last 8. Now, probably 12. When it's the 3rd day in a row where there are 5 days left, you know something's off. The peanut butter supply dwindles. The number of miles left does not. It's become about survival. Getting out of here safely, there are 3 challenges. Up climbing the water pools, the destruction of the cairn that led us astray, and the bushwhacking. It's mission retreat, it's mission survival. We've killed all the options. We're hiking the hardest 4 miles of the Hayduke twice. I just want to get out.
Wow.
There's an insight to my mental space right there.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. Like, that's so incredible. I feel like we just got our own like custom, like Elina Osborne, like narration there.
Yeah, first
like voiceover.
First heard hair.
That's awesome. That's definitely quite unique for the show. So
great,
thank you
great.
For,
yes.
No, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no worries. It's a crazy time. And if you read in the guidebook, that stretch of trail literally says these are the hardest 4 miles with a Hayduke. I'm glad we only had to do it once. And then, yeah, we backtracked it. So
Oof.
Great times. But the good thing is we also have all the video coverage of that whole experience and demise into madness. So
yeah, well, I'm excited to see it. I hope.
Thanks. Yeah, me too.
Whenever it comes out, I'm very excited. I'm sure a lot of people, and it won't be on your channel, is my understanding, correct?
At this stage, no.
Okay. Well, where actually, can I ask, where do you know?
This is a great question because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just, it's interesting going from a YouTube world to like this kind of more semi-mainstream space in traditional media. And balancing the two, which is like my life right now, because I'm still like, I feel like foot in both worlds, not fully in both. And I'm not sure what your experience is like with that. And if you're having similar, I don't know, experiences.
I'm solidly YouTube.
Okay.
For now, anyways. Maybe I do have ambitions. I feel like every YouTuber to a degree has ambitions to kind of take it. I don't know. I think I haven't actually taken any steps towards this, so this is just like a pipe dream kind of thing, but I do think it would be cool to make more documentary style films, whether it's about some of the cases that I'm covering on my channel now, some of these like mystery cases, or whether it's your typical free solo kind of outdoor recreation more documentary. And my one of my editors, Luke, who's been a guest on the show a couple times, he has similar ambitions as well, so we often daydream about this, but like I said, no actual action. He's in the Air Force for another 3 years, so we got some time to figure it out.
Yeah, no, and that's an incredible thing with the platform, right? It's like they're almost merging into the two. So whether you aspire for traditional but still post on YouTube, it's where the audience is. And it's exciting. And again, we don't know. It might live it might be distributed on a streaming platform. It might just be YouTube.
That'd be so cool.
But just be YouTube shouldn't exist. It might be YouTube.
No, I know what you're saying. That's so cool. So you're a long ways ahead of me when it comes to this stuff. So I'm excited to pick your brain about this a little bit. And
Great. Well, I might see you in Utah, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was actually going to ask what was next in terms of hiking, if you had any plans. I guess Utah, but besides that, that's just going to be for like a night. But
one night. I'm like gotta figure out my plans because it's a long way to go for a night of hiking. So I think right now my dream would be to hike the trail in Japan this year, probably in the later stages, but it's kind of figuring out my timing because I have some other projects I'm working on that are non-hiking related, if you can believe. And so it's kind of like, okay, how do I work these two together? Because I feel like hiking and through hiking is very much, a part of my life and who I am. So yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's something I think that every thru hiker struggles with, is how to balance regular life and obligations off trail with taking the large amount of time required to thru hike. So I'm sure you'll figure it out. Everybody always figures it out. And thank you for coming on here. Thank you for giving me your time.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
No, we'll have to do another one. And I sure hope you make the trip to Utah so we can hang out and see everybody else too. People will know what we're talking about in a couple months here. It's nothing like crazy. It's just like anyways. Thank you so much. And I'm sure most people listening and watching have seen your stuff already, but in case they haven't, where can people go watch your videos and follow you and all that social media stuff?
I post sporadically on YouTube under my name, Elina Osborne, and then my Instagram is the same except minus the O. For some reason I did that, so it's Elina's Born on Instagram. I think I have a TikTok, but I do not use it. I cannot put my brain into that app and let it melt. Although I know that it's also very good, right?
I spent a lot more time watching it. I downloaded it so that I could post on it, and now I spend way more time watching it than I do posting. So
you're probably learning a lot.
No, I'm not. It's you're spot on. Like you're making the right choice. Fuck TikTok.
Great.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to plug?
Not yet, but there's a project coming one day soon. It'll be dropped, and hopefully your mind will be blown. But we will see.
I will be keeping my eyes peeled. I'm sure everybody else will too. So thank you. That's going to do it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, and I will see you next week. Yes. Woohoo! All right.